Welcome, Patti, to our podcast today. Good morning.
Hi, Sophia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic now that Mercury's gone direct.
Oh, thank God for that. I think everybody can relate to what that means. It was an interesting 3 weeks.
Even people that don't know what that means, they know something gnarly happened.
Now they know. Now they know what it is.
It was a particularly interesting, without getting into too many opinions and judgments about it. It was just interesting to watch and try not have to have a judgment about it. It was certainly trying to suck you in there.
Oh yeah, there was like a little curve everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well today I want to chat a little bit about an energy modality that you use very frequently in your teachings and also in sessions, besides Reiki, and it is emotional freedom technique.
Yes.
For short, people say it's EFT tapping, and if you haven't heard it, you might have seen it, tapping on certain points on your face. How does EFT work? What is it in a nutshell for somebody who's never been exposed to it?
Well, emotional freedom technique, I like to call it a technology because I think it's a little bit more than a technique, is because I think we're intelligent design. And emotional freedom, to begin with, is to emancipate yourself from, to give yourself an emotional freedom from the things that create certain behaviors, create certain physical diseases. But before we get into that, basically emotional freedom technique is it's gently tapping on key acupressure points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like psychological acupuncture.
Okay.
And what it does is, when you are in an emotional state,
Mm-hmm.
you know it because you go into a rant, or you lose yourself, or you completely have a meltdown. That's the part of the spectrum that has got you to that place because you've been in either denial,
Mm-hmm.
or you're coping with your emotional intelligence. And I say emotional intelligence because your emotions are trying to tell you something. Your emotions are energy in motion. So it's kind of like the gentle lapping of the energy.
Like biofeedback.
Tell you, yes, it's like biofeedback. Oh, this doesn't feel too good. This doesn't feel too good. And then it starts getting choppier and choppier energetically until there's a swell.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, you're at Thanksgiving and you basically have a complete meltdown in front of the family. But what gets it to those places is our pretense that everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Is the denial that there's nothing wrong with me, nothing's going on, and also a complete unawareness that you've just got on with it your entire life, and you don't know that these things are actually building up in you. You kind of know, but you don't know. And then there's willful unawareness.
Oh yeah, that one.
I'm not going to look at this. I'm going to sit in this rage. I'm not angry. I'm not annoyed. I'm not scared.
Doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother me. So, pick your poison.
Yeah.
That then goes into over 5 years and 10 years into dis-ease, because this erosion of our emotions will then go into behaviors. Now, the coping mechanisms for that is what we look at as behaviors, as in addictions.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, if they're quelling, depending on their pain and also their pain threshold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you could have someone that's had some trauma that's happened to them, but their pain threshold is different to someone else's. Mm-hmm. Someone else has had the same trauma, but they are tranquilizing that with alcohol and they become alcoholics.
Yeah.
Or other people, addiction is alcohol, drugs, sugar,
mm-hmm.
and even the addiction to working out, yoga, or even meditation. Let's meditate it away.
Yeah.
You know, let's spin this stuff away. Let's go to spin class and just not think about it. And so we learn how to manage and cope. But the thing is, going to a spin class isn't destructive of a family as being an alcoholic is.
Yes.
Or being a heroin addict, or being a sugar addict.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, you know, because sugar, there's a great TED talk, and I suggest that people listen to it, is about sugar, that it's exactly the same as cocaine in the brain. It fires up the same neurotransmitters.
Yeah, it gives the same dopamine receptors.
Yes. What? Yeah. You know, like you feel, you know, on top of the world. You're,
or even like a little pick me up, like
yes,
it may not be a coffee in the morning, it's maybe the sugar that gives you the pick me up.
Exactly. So emotional freedom technique, what it does is when people say to you, if you're a person that has been in therapy a long time, or you've done any kind of therapy, and you've heard the phrase, well, you know, you need to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that you're there in therapy sometimes to let it go, but that's not where they let it go sometimes. Sometimes it's just, we understand why my mother did what she did, why my father did what he did, you know, because they were learned the same thing from their parents and society and cultures and whatever. And now it's kind of taken the edge off it, but I'm still rageful. I'm still angry. I'm still disappointed. I'm still depressed. I still have regret, still have fury. I still have self-loathing.
And it varies in intensity.
Yes. So when you're eating self-loathing, when you're eating, I'm not enough, but this food fills me up to make me feel enough, then I don't need to deal with my not enoughness. But then I'm going around vibrating, I'm not enough. And then you wonder why opportunities don't come, or you wonder why, you know, things haven't materialized, because this is the set point. I'm not enough, which then filled up by the Chardonnay, the food, the whatever. So really, and this is what they talk about when they talk about stress levels.
Yeah.
All of these emotions and when you understand your emotions are an intelligence, they're telling you something like, oh, why did I feel like that all of a sudden? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
But emotional freedom allows you to tap into the core aspect of that, you know, a rage, or that thing that replays like a loop over and over and over again. Or you see a pattern of things, and you can tap into that and bring it down from a 10 or an 8 to a 0 point, basically, and be free of it.
What made you learn EFT?
My Reiki master made me do it.
Okay.
When I was doing Reiki, I wasn't doing Reiki to become a teacher. I was doing Reiki to Reiki my dad's head, because he was clinically depressed and my mother was dying. And that was enough for me. Chris said to me, my Reiki master, Chris Ross, in Scotland, she's in Glasgow, she said, you have to learn this EFT. I just have this message that you have to learn it. And I said, is that crazy tapping thing? And she said, yes, that's the crazy tapping thing. And I says, I'm not learning it. I says, it's enough with the invisible field of energy to try and explain that without trying to now do the crazy tapping thing. And she said, you're coming with me this weekend. And I went, and I said, well, if this works on my back pain, I'm in. And the thing about EFT, it was very big in Scotland at this time. This was back in like 2000. And it was big because it was taking 3 to 4 strokes off a pro golfer's game.
Oh, yeah.
EFT tents at the golf tournaments. Because golfers understand this, being Scottish. I'm Scottish, just in case you haven't recognised the accent. Although Scots will listening to this saying she doesn't sound Scottish at all. EFT basically, but golf to start with is a game of the mind. It's a game of consistency, not losing your mind. It's a game of keeping your emotions in check. And of, you know, I'm looking at that ball and I'm thinking, I'm never going to hit that fairway. I'm never going to get on the green. I'm never going to get on the green. You can't have that negative thinking. So they were using it to get rid of this negative thinking. And they're taking 3 to 4 strokes of a pro golfer's game, not a ordinary person's game, a pro golf. So that is a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
So I decided, okay, and I went and I learned it. And the reason why I say about my back pain was I had already set my back up as this biofeedback system of every time I went out with the wrong person or the wrong man came into my life, my back would tell me, because my back would go out. But I was like, I knew there was something off about that, because I knew that when I was rock climbing and hanging over an overhang, there was nothing wrong with my back. But I could go and lift a pencil and my back would go out, or get in the car the wrong way. It was bizarre. So I realized that the difference was when I was rock climbing and hanging off a rock, I was not thinking. What was I thinking about when I was lifting up that pencil? What was I annoyed about? What was I ruminating about? Going in the back tape. So I started to become very, very aware. And then obviously when it first happened, what the emotional setup was of that. I had cell trauma in my back from a car accident I'd had. I basically was going to work and my boyfriend had the cold and was making me feel guilty that I was leaving him. So I felt guilty. And I was only in my early 20s and I was driving to work and it was windy roads, and I basically flew off the road and landed on top of a haystack. And I'm like sitting on the top of this haystack, the wheels are still going, and the farmer comes out with a tractor and pulls me off. And but I had that memory of feeling guilty in my cells. It was imprinted. So every time I felt guilty about anything, like leaving my mother and father in London to after the show and not waiting for them, or my back would start going out. You know, anything that was that would trigger any kind of form of guilt, I would exaggerated guilt. So it worked on my back.
Wow.
And I got rid of all of the, you know, the cell memory and everything. And I used it a lot here in California, in especially in Los Angeles, with a lot of creatives. They were like my golfers.
Yeah.
Because they knew that when their game was off, it was the difference between being able to perform in that edition or perform or lose their
once in a golden chance.
Yeah, and lose their stuff.
Yeah.
On set, because oh my god, people, I'm going to be exposed. They're going to know I'm a fraud, you know, like that's fine if you're working in a hotel and you're like, oh my God, I've got this big giant position. This is, you know, you can work through that. But when you're like on set and there's cameras and there's people looking at you and you have witnesses, it's like super exaggerated.
Yeah.
So they get it. They were really kind of getting, I need to get rid of this. I need to find out where all my stuff is, because this is what I want to do. Whether it be a storyteller as a director, and I have to hold the space for these actors to make them feel safe. And if I go in there not feeling safe, it's a mess.
Yeah. Totally.
So they decided to really embrace EFT in ways that, in very creative ways, to, you know, really kind of look at any kind of limitations that they might have in the collective, even of well, you have to pay your dues. Why do I have to pay my dues? Why have I made that belief up? So it was very, very interesting. It was a great journey for me, because it took that work with this very small percentage of people who really were very focused and driven in this regard, for me then to take that, water it down and dilute it into how a mother could use that, how someone starting their own business as a florist could use that, how someone could use that, whereas all of these things then kind of got used in a bigger spectrum.
So from what you're telling me, it's almost like it worked on physical aspects, it got physical ailments, it works on emotional aspects, and it also works on
ethereal
future goals.
Yeah, ethereal things that you don't know that are holding you back.
And I remember you talked about having strange phobias, that when we started tapping and going into that revealed a completely different underlying story.
Yes, any kind of phobia, any kind of, it doesn't discriminate. So say I have a phobia for I think it's online actually, with Greg with the horses. He had a phobia of like large animals, things that were big, you know. Well, that really wasn't about animals. That was about him being that big and being seen and everything. It's all underlying. So
Yeah.
anything that we have that we know is a phobia, right? But you know, Greg's not going to get on a horse, you know, and go to work. Why does he need to get rid of it? He's not around horses. He doesn't need to
Yeah.
be around horses. But it's a gift. It's an opportunity for you to, and that's what Greg did. He took that opportunity to go, I know I have this thing
Mm-hmm.
about, oh my God, that animal's bigger than I thought it was,
Yeah.
right? And I know it's a thing that I have, and I know that if I get rid of it, it'll get rid of it in another parts of my life that maybe I don't even know that it's blocking.
Yes. Yes. And
So that I love, because it is, if you know you have a specific thing, it's really a mask for something else
yes.
that could be coming up in your personal life with finding, you know, love. It could be coming up in why you don't have that promotion. It could be like, why don't I have that promotion? Why have I not been like, why am I never acknowledged? Why am I never recognized for what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're always there. You're the common denominator.
Yeah. You're always there. Wherever you go, you are there.
so, so start with that. That's a clue.
That is really fascinating to me. It's almost like making me think, like, what other phobias do I have that I can work on to see what
Yes,
else it opens up some magical doors out of nowhere.
exactly. And it makes you look. This is all shadow work that I'm doing. This is all what Carl Jung used to say, basically, that you have to go into the darkness. That's where the goodies are.
Yes.
I don't want to know what you know. You already know that.
Things we don't know.
I want to know what you don't know, what lies beneath. And you're like, oh no, I don't want to go there. And you're like, well, why not? That's where the goodies are.
Yeah.
It's like the door marked fear.
Yeah.
That's the one we have to go through.
And people have phobias of all kinds, or even if they don't call it phobias, it could be just uncomfortable situations.
Yes.
Because I think we're too proud to call that I have a phobia. We just say, oh, I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, I think it's awareness and unawareness. It's like, what are you aware of that you know may be a problem? And then what are you willing
to do about it?
Wow. And then you will manifest who will be able to take you through those doors or not.
Wow. Yeah.
But if you're not willing, that's where the ego is very, very useful.
Yes.
Because it's the willingness to go to your yoga class. It's the willingness to go to your spin class. It's the willingness to, you know what, I'm going to come off coffee for a little while. It's the willingness to say, you know what, I need to come off the sugar. You know what, I need to do a wee cleanse. It's the willingness. My cousin said to me once, just recently at the holidays, she said, I'm addicted to this soft drink. And I said, no, you're not addicted to that soft drink. And she said, yes, I'm telling you, I'm addicted. I says, if I gave you $1 million to come off that soft drink, would you come off it? She said, yes. I said, then you're not addicted, because you'll do it for money. A person who is an addict, it doesn't matter how much money, or if they're going to lose their kids, or they're going to have their children taken off them, they still can't come off it.
So some of us might be just fake addicts.
No, you're just unwilling.
Unwilling.
To do it because you're like, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. You can't take my stuff. I like it the way I like it. And you'll see that with yogis when they go to yoga. Mm-hmm. Well, I like when we do pigeon. I like when we do this pose. Why are we not doing this pose? And they get all rattled.
So you could tap on and shift your resistance to willingness as well with EFT then.
Well, I would more tap on my unwillingness.
Unwillingness, like, yeah.
My unwillingness to give, my unwillingness to share, my unwillingness to and that's the 2-year-old. I think that's the 2-year-old, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to eat my greens.
Yeah, take away the broccoli.
I don't want to go. I don't want to wear that floral dress. I don't want, right? And that's when we learn will. We throw our food on the floor and we say, wow, they're picking it up for me. You learn something in that moment, that you have will. Willpower.
Yeah.
Power. Will and power, right?
Yeah.
But willpower is completely separate, right? Willpower is its own thing. It's the willpower to do things that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have will and you have power. Separate. I've got the power, and I'm not doing it.
Oh my God. In your experience with working with EFT for so long, almost like 20 years now, what was the most fascinating shifts you've seen?
That's a difficult one to answer, because the ones that are the most interesting I can't really talk about. What I have seen are people who have went from, I've seen people become pregnant who couldn't get pregnant. I've seen people who, one man who walked in with a brace on his back, who was getting surgery 2 days later, but walked out without the brace.
Wow.
I've seen people who have come in that were suicidal every single day of their life, who then messaged me, actually, it was a few years ago now, and said, it's so funny, it's been 6 months and I've not thought of suicide once.
Wow.
And these are ones I can talk about. I used it on Tom. Actually, Tom, I think I blogged about, and Tom came to me with colon cancer. And it was, I had actually said, energetically said, I wonder what it would be like to, I wonder, there, I'm creating with that wonder, what it would be like to work with someone who really had the belief in EFT. Because first you are the biology of your belief, if you've read Bruce Lipton's book.
Yeah.
And and someone who really believed in EFT and believed that they could do this without chemo. I didn't need to convince them, and I don't convince people, because I meet people where they're at. If you believe that you need to do the EFT and the chemo
together
at the beginning, at the end, at both ends, and you still need to do chemo, then that's your biology of belief. So having that wonderment, that thought, about 2 weeks later, a woman got in touch with me who had used EFT in Florida. She had sclerodermy, and sclerodermy is basically your skin suffocates you and you die within 2 years. Wow. So she used EFT on all the emotional aspects of what was manifesting this skin suffocating disease, where she was being suffocated in her life, where she had suffocated herself. She dissolved the sclerodermy, and she's still here. This is 7, 8 years later. So her brother had colon cancer, and it was too much for her to work with him one-to-one because it was too personal. Yeah. And would he come to me? So he came to me every single week. And remember, this was all before Obamacare with the pre-existing conditions. So you didn't have a lot of, and he was like, well, give me 6 months. Give me 6 months doing this other stuff. If it doesn't get rid of it, I'll do whatever you want. He then went and he did juice fasting. He did it for 12 weeks. Wow. But he also knew that he needed to deal with the emotional component. And he said, and as we did the EFT, there were some weeks that he didn't even know what he wanted to do it on. He was like, there's nothing to EFT. I'm all out of things to do it on. You get in that office, he would get in my room, and all of this stuff would come up. Wow. After everything. So that even though he didn't think there was anything more to do, there was always something lurking.
Because he was willing to show up there for
every week.
Yeah.
So and he remembers a distinct. He just turned, I think, 52, and he remembers when he was 50, he was sitting with his cat having a glass of wine, and he thought, "Who'd care if I died?"
And that thought manifested the
Good care, because I thought I'd have had a family by now.
Mm.
I thought things were going to turn out differently by now. I thought, and then he remembered that thought distinctly. And now, how do you remember a thought? He just remembered having this thought, and he said, that's something that I need to address.
Yeah.
And he did. When they went back in with keyhole surgery. They couldn't find it, actually. They couldn't find the cancer, the mass. 2 days later, he was at Sweat Lodge.
Wow.
And then 6 months, a year later, he had to come back to me because he had survivor's guilt.
Wow.
You know, he's feeling this guilt that he survived, that he didn't have to do the things that other people had to do.
About his luck, but it was his willingness that got him there.
Doesn't matter. He felt guilty about that.
Wow. It's an incredible story that it like goes through like the emotional aspect, the physical aspect, and the post, like even after, especially the part where you say he had survivor's guilt, because if not addressed, it would have manifested into
Yes.
a redo of the whole cycle.
Yes, it makes you wonder what the ones are that I'm not telling you.
I know. The next question I have, Patti, is so, okay, emotional freedom technique, it helps to collapse and everything. What role does it play to our joy and pausing in our joy?
Well, when you feel guilty, when you feel rageful, when you feel fearful, when you feel scared, how are you going to be in joy?
You can't focus on your joy. Yeah,
like enjoy. How can you enjoy yourself when there's these feelings? It's almost like it stunts it. It almost makes you feel guilty to be in the joy. It makes you feel, but you can enjoy yourself, and it's also allowing yourself to enjoy. You know what I mean? Sometimes a lot of guilt and sadness, whatever, you never even get to enjoy your life. Or things that you like to do because this is the predominant frequency. But it's about being like, if you decided to say like, I'm not going to enjoy what I do because the world is in such pain, then you are not holding the space for joy in the world.
So you're not contributing to that spectrum of
I'll tell you, there's a documentary called The Lady at Number 6. And the lady at number 6 was a lady who was, I think she was 106 or 108 when she died. She was in a Nazi concentration camp, and she was a classically trained concert pianist.
Okay.
And she had a very different experience to everybody else in the camp. She was in different quarters because she was there to play for the Nazis, and she was Jewish, and she enjoyed playing. Now, she could have said, I don't want to play because I'm in this place and other people are having a terrible experience. But she played, and she played for the camp every week.
Okay.
For the workers in the camp. And afterwards, they were interviewing. They said, we had nothing to eat. There was nothing, but seeing her face illuminate when she played, we knew that God still existed somewhere. Wow. And it fed our souls because there was no food.
Yeah.
That there was some kind of phenomenon, like music wasn't dead, art wasn't dead, and there was this connection that they had when she would play. Now, if she had said, well, I can't possibly play, I can't do my thing because all of this is happening around me, she connected to the music, to her music. Yeah. And she was grateful that she got to play for the camp. She was grateful that she got to play. So I think it's important to enjoy, but also recognize that there's other things that there's other people and there's other things happening in the world, that you are not going to be able to separate sadness and joy.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to separate these things. But when it is disabling you, to enjoy the things that you're here to do and give, and you go into paralysis, then I think it's important to do the emotional freedom technique. You know, a man came to me years ago who lost his wife, and he was grieving. And he said, I don't know when it's a good time to get rid of my grief because it's debilitating me. But I have children and I can't get out of bed in the morning.
Wow.
So I said, well, this would be a good time that we need to dissolve it because you're neglecting the kids.
Yeah.
And he said, I know. He says, that's why I want to do this. He says, because there's grieving. He says, and I think there's part of it is went past that. He says, and it's causing now problems in the present with them. And I have to purge it. I have to get through it. And it's not that I'm removing my grief, I'm just getting through all the different levels of grief, which is sadness, anger, disappointment, regret, all the things. It's grief is just not one thing.
No, it's,
you know, he decided to look at his pain and his sadness and dissipate it because it was affecting him looking after his children now without his wife. When you ask, you know, does it help a broken heart? I would say, well, that was a broken heart.
so another part is because in EFT, you say out loud the setup statement, which is sometimes a negative statement, a negative affirmation, like I am feeling angry. And it goes, a lot of people find it conflicting to why.
I find that just there, what you said, that negative statement, I am angry. What if that's an honest statement and not negative? What is it? What if that's just you speaking the truth? Everybody's about honesty now. Companies are about honesty and authenticity. But when we say, saying I'm angry is actually negative.
Yeah.
Then how are you going to be honest and how are you going to be authentic?
True. And I think this is like, you know, the part of EFT that's fascinating because even though you're saying the truth, that may not sound very pleasant. And
the truth isn't.
Yeah.
But that's what they say about the truth. The messenger always gets shot. I'm like Neo from Matrix, you know? I've been shot a lot.
How does one typically feel in an EFT session?
Some people say that they feel like they've just done 13 rounds with Mike Tyson. Some people feel like they have an intensity level of they've done 3 years of therapy and it's just erupted in one session. Some people feel relief. Some say they feel a release. Some people who say, well, I never cry. So they cry for the first time. They give themselves permission. Some people didn't even know a cry was inside of them. They're like, oh, how did you access that?
Yeah. Wow.
So it can be, it's very different to everyone, men and women, you know, and yes, men cry as well.
Yeah.
Cry as much as women
instantaneous cry. Feedback, the shift in your mood and your energy, how you feel, it's a pretty instantaneous feedback within.
Well, yes, what I can't speak about other people who do EFT, but I'm okay with, the thing is, I'm okay with people crying.
Yeah.
I'm okay with holding the space with people having a complete meltdown. I'm okay with someone going into a panic attack. I'm okay with someone touching the core of that place that they would normally not go to. It creates an energetic field that we're going to go there.
Yeah.
If you as a healer are not okay with that, you will take people to that place where, okay, well, we're getting a little bit upset now, or something's going on and it's getting quite intense, so we'll finish there for today. So what may take someone 5 sessions, because of everybody's comfort levels,
Yeah.
may take me a session.
Wow.
So it's really to do with the healer as well, but also the person choosing the healer will choose the healer that's going to take them to 0 to 90 in the Formula One car because they're ready.
Yes.
Someone who is not ready to get in the rocket will choose to go on the bungee jump with somebody else to get them used to. I mean, so it doesn't matter because you're choosing what's right for you.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yes.
So someone that comes to me may not go to somebody else, or they may go to somebody else, but they've went to someone and it's taken 3 or 4 times, and they're like, no, I'm ready for something more intense.
Some bigger shift.
Someone else was like, oh no, I wouldn't go to her because she's too intense. I need to go to Sophia.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with Sophia. And everybody just has their, and they need to listen to that more. But how do you know that you're just scared, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go around seeking all the modalities and all the experiences because I'm really rather enjoying this.
Yeah.
Than actually getting rid of it.
Wow. This has been such a fascinating session, Patti. It's been amazing learning parts of EFT because, yes, we can look up EFT and what it does, but the way you explained it, giving what a healer brings, what a person who's looking for the different aspects of it, it was very, very fascinating. So thank you for that.
Well, not at all. I also want to kind of finish with, there's a thing in EFT that I don't know if people realize, but there's a thing called 2 things. That is psychological reversal and the apex problem. The psychological reversal is when you say that you want rid of this thing, but you don't want to let it go. So you know that you want to be successful, but you're not. You know that you want to work out, so you're reversed.
Your polarity.
There's certain things that we do to stop you being reversed. And then there's the apex problem. The apex problem is, how can this is, I've had this for 15 years. How can you take this away from me so quickly?
In 15 minutes sometimes.
How can you just like, oh, that's the apex problem. Like, how can we go from 0 to 90 and, how can, my problems are special.
Yeah, nobody else has them.
No one else has what I had. You're never going to get it. That's the apex.
Yeah. And it's,
what are you going to do without it? How do you operate without it?
Yeah.
So there's those things as well in, and I think that's the art of EFT is, mechanically and technically you can understand it, but understanding the art of it, the art of delivering it and doing it is very special. There's a flair to it, an instinctiveness to it, a spaciousness, an allowance of allowing people to go there.
Yes, I think with the Reiki tuning, we practice the tuning into ourself, and then in one of the Reiki levels, you do teach us EFT tapping, and the combination of the two that brings that art in a way, I feel.
Yes, yeah, and that's why I decided to put it in at level 2, because when you're sending Reiki back to all the years in your life, I'm not going to be there at 2:00 in the morning when your stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to be there, if you, decide to emigrate or whatever, you have it there to tap on stuff when you're going into that big meeting, or you're going to go and do something, or you can see something and in the moment you learn it and you shoot that thing down.
Yeah. And then you get better at it to recognize and detect it in the early stages of it.
Yes.
And to our audiences, I know on our YouTube channel, we have like a series of EFT tapping examples on prenatal, and also like you talked about the fear of horses, to check that out if you want to see. I didn't want to talk about in this podcast the technique and how-tos about the points, because I really wanted to get into what is EFT with Patti.
Oh, thanks.
Pause and joy, and seeing how that would elevate our consciousness.
Fantastic.
So thank you, Patti. And I'll see you soon. And thank you, audiences. If you have any other questions, especially even with EFT tapping, and you would like us to post a video about a certain topic, please write back to us at sophia@pauseandjoy.com, or even on our Facebook page. You can send us a message. And thank you very much.